Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report live here on YouTube and on Facebook. We're glad to have you here today. Had a little technical glitch getting started right on time, but we've got you here, and I'm glad to have you. Nick Adam Poling here, your host, and we're going to be talking a little bit of Seismic Toys. We've got Jairus here with us as well, and I'm going to bring in my special guest in a minute. But before we get our guest in here, I wanted to make sure everyone knew that we are on YouTube and on Facebook, so give us a like on Facebook, The Monster Report. Find us on YouTube at The Monster Report as well. Twitter. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. We're up to about 78,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for supporting this channel and all we do here at The Monster Report. With all that out of the way, like, subscribe, comment, all those good things, I'm going to bring in my guest today. That would be Mr. Chris Oglio joining us from Seismic Toys in New York. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Nick. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. And I'm glad that you're able to make some time in your schedule and talk to us a little. We just had, of course, the drop for Jairus. If anyone was out there and had the chance to pick him up, great looking figure. There's yours. Yep.
Yeah.
So excited to get him and review him with the guy that I was able to purchase him from, and part of the crew that brought him here. And being able to see this in with the Seismic logo there and the bottom of his foot, really cool. Not seeing him as any kind of, X Plus or Marmot or anything like that. This is a Seismic original of seeing Jairus. So, Chris, tell me a little about what went into bringing Jairus here to Seismic and to my hands that I have him in right now.
Well, it was a kind of a cool journey. It actually started about the fall of last year. We've been producing the figures for the Dawn of the Monsters video game line. Mm-hmm. And we started that in 2019. We started up the company, and we've been kind of developing that line. And kind of by opportunity, my business partner, Alex Rushdie, who not only is the main person over at 13 AM Games, who's spearheading Dawn of the Monsters, but he also is my partner in the toys at Seismic. And he had a connection, and we kind of just were like, let's just throw it out there. Let's see what we can do, with Tsuburaya Productions. And luckily, through, again, just, through the proper channels, we were able to get in contact with them, and they allowed us to get a licensing agreement.
Okay, awesome. And so for those of that might not know of Jairus, when I explained this to my kids, you saw Eli before we went on live. When I explained this to my kids, I wanted them to look very closely, and they were just like, well, it kind of looks like Godzilla. And then I was getting into the explanation. If you could give us a brief explanation of Jairus and the connection to Godzilla that we've got, for those who don't know.
Again, it's probably one of the most famous episodes of Ultraman. The very first episode, no, not the first episodes, but from the first season of Ultraman. Mm-hmm. And when obviously Eiji Tsuburaya, who we all know and we all love, and because he was really the godfather of the tokusatsu special effects, he was able to have some pull at Toho. So he, in many times in Ultra Q and in Ultraman, he was able to use Toho props, and in this case, obviously, he took a Godzilla suit and was able to kind of reconstruct it and repaint it and put the frill around it, and that's how we got Jairus.
That's right.
And it's one of the most fun. And even if you're not a Ultraman fan, mm-hmm. and if you're a Godzilla fan, you just know that you've seen that episode, you've seen those pictures, and Jairus is a great creature. So it was really, he was our first choice as well to do. Obviously, there's other things to follow, but we're excited that we were able to kind of do it, and it's many months of design and going back and forth, we finally got the final approval.
So when it came to Jairus, when we saw him, of course, in that episode of Ultraman, it's great. Obviously, if you're, like you said, if you're not an Ultraman fan, you're a kaiju fan of any kind, a tokusatsu fan of any kind, check out that episode, because it is so much fun, because we haven't seen an actual Ultraman versus Godzilla, but this is the closest thing we've got.
Yes, indeed.
To seeing that. And he even rips off that fin so we can see, in a sense, a Godzilla actually fighting Ultraman.
Yeah, I mean that's actually was my first exposure to the original Ultraman. Was seeing that episode. It actually aired at a local convention that I went to, and I remember passing by this room, and I'm like, "Wow, that roar sounds a lot like Godzilla." And I poked my head in, and I watched the whole episode, and again, I was very surprised that it was basically
Yeah.
Godzilla with a frill.
And
So,
what's fun about Ultraman? Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. I
No, I was
interrupted
just
you.
saying it was just kind of a fun thing to see that, and that was my exposure to the original series.
And so when I like watch Ultraman with my kids, of course, I come from, like you, Godzilla was kind of first the films, and Subaraya working on the films, the show, a series, and going to Ultraman, you can kind of see that things are on a tighter budget because it's for television. When I show my kids, they don't care. It's fun. They're seeing monster action. They're seeing fun sci-fi with the science patrol and all of that, and the humor that goes along with it. It's just a show that is enjoyable for everyone, and so they don't really have that kind of, I guess, problem with it. Seeing that, and then seeing, of course, the familiar monsters. It's just the glove of Subaraya, the hand that was able to pull all that together and make all those creatures. And yeah, one of our favorites is Jairus. So the design of Jairus that you've got here is really cool. I love the translucency that you've done, just like with my Arctic Megadon that I purchased. And but there's maybe I could say a little bit more, maybe translucency in the yellow versus the blue, because in the Megadon, you had some of that. But with this, this yellow that you've got here in the back, kind of explain to me, why the translucency is kind of maybe one of your signatures that you're working with, and why you chose maybe some of the coloration that you did.
Sure. So what happened was when we had originally designed Jairus, we had a concept that was probably a lot more different than what we finally saw. And again, as all things, when you're dealing with a licensed product, you have to abide by the licensees, some of their critiques. So we had to modify some of our design, which was again a much more different thing. But one of the things that was always our intention was with the frill, we really wanted to look like it was actually growing out of Jairus as opposed to it being just like kind of around his neck, like you would see on like the Kenner's, early 90s Dilophosaurus figure from Jurassic Park. We
Right.
wanted it to really be like it was physically growing out of him, something that we really haven't seen before. And with all of our first releases, we've always had a thing about doing things with translucents and metallic paints. And again, with the Arctic that you have was slightly different because our original Megadon, which is actually up here, I'll bring it down for everybody to see. It kind of follows that suit where it's a translucent figure and it has the spray of the metallics. And we wanted to apply the same thing to Jairus. And some of the color choices were sort of by happenstance. I find that one of the most fun part of the processes for me is when me and Alex are sitting down with the model and we're spinning in and we're just kind of just experimenting things. And we usually will have, 6 or 7 color schemes that really kind of get our eye. And then we kind of go from there. We kind of, chip away at what we feel is the most color choice that we think is going to be the most exciting for us. And again, sometimes those color choices are never they're deleted, but you put them away and you might come back to them for referencing something else many, many moons later, so to speak. So we wanted to keep it where it was very much that you would be able to see clear through him. Again, I like translucent figures a lot, and for us, it's always something that we wanted to accomplish. And it stems from a lot of different places. We wanted to make sure again, not only was the frill, which is the main portion of the figure, to be really translucent, as well as the dorsal plates with the tail. But the stomach would be too, as would be the fingernails and the toenails on the figure that you'd see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely see that in all of the more lighter colors there, that you have that translucency, but not to the point where I guess you're seeing that you're not looking in to see the joints, that make up like the inner workings of how the legs and arms kind of couple with the main part of the body. You're not really seeing that. So it's I mean, you get right on it. I guess you can kind of see it, but being translucent, not transparent, is definitely a really cool part of that. And even the shading, how it goes up to the dorsal fins and seeing getting a little darker as it goes, slightly different shade, on the frill there. Just love seeing that the color pop. And I guess when it comes to the color choices, the blue working with the yellow highlights and all of this, it's like going into Photoshop or whatever it is, what you use to see, do these two colors complement each other, or do these two shades of colors, just react badly with each other's? And I think, when you finally settled on what you did, it just really makes this figure stand out on the shelf compared to a lot of the other kaiju figures we might have, that monochromatic and other kind of, just gray kaiju figures we might have on the shelf.
And I think that's one of the beauties of Sotheby, and it's one of the things that I, as a collector, and also as someone that helps design these toys, also likes, is the fact that they are so colorful. And yes, we love having our very photorealistic kaiju, our shelves of X plus gray Godzillas, and they're perfectly look like they stepped right off the film. But it's nice to have something where that's a little bit more eye-catching and different. We were able to kind of experiment a little bit, not only with some of the ideas of what we didn't want to necessarily be 100% suit accurate, because again, at the end of the day, we're doing a stylized version of the character. Right. So that's always something that we want to be cognizant of. Now, we don't want to do anything too crazy unless we think it works for the design of the figure, but we wanted to do something that was very unique, especially because we had compared it to many of the previous Sotheby versions of Jairus that we've seen. So we wanted to do something that was not what has ever been done before.
Yeah, it's definitely unique from all the other ones that are out there, which, I mean, I don't know how many I've seen out there. I don't know if you could count them on one hand.
Oh yeah, there's quite a few of them. I mean, obviously the one everybody had from years ago, which is it's a brilliant figure, is the M1 version. That was done as a G-Fest 2019 exclusive, and it was a glowy, which again, who doesn't love glow in the dark figures? They're great. Yeah. But we wanted to do something even with the sculpt as well. And again, I have to give it out to our sculptor, Mike Lambert, who also has done all the previous figures for the Dawn of the Monsters line. I mean, he really just did a fantastic job with the sculpt, just from day one, just for some of the concept sketches and some of the things that we were kind of working towards, just to the final product. I mean, he really just put so much detail, so much, tender loving care into the final design. It was really quite tremendous.
Yeah, he did a great job with that. I remember having Alex, Steve, and Mike on the show, talking to them about a lot of the Dawn of the Monsters connections, and of course, Mike Lambert with the 3Ding of everything, which is. We're going to get back to the design here in a second. I want to bring in some chat. We've got Everett, Godzilla Fan Freaks on YouTube. So Everett is in the chat, a little slow to work. This is nice to chime in and watch. Really cool figure. Loves the color, but he's also got a question for you. He kind of wants one now that he's seeing it on the screen. What do you say?
Oh, don't worry about that, Everett. We are still having them in stock. They are extremely low in stock. We are on pretty much the final batch because, again, what happened was we had these on pre-order in July, and then we had a certain amount that were available that we announced a few weeks ago that we had some for sale. So don't worry, Everett. Contact me. I'll make sure you get one. Don't worry.
And Everett, when you check out his YouTube channel here soon, I know he's going to have that Mondo Hanna-Barbera.
Yes, and I've seen that in person. I was at DesignerCon in Los Angeles in November. And it's quite an impressive piece. They had I guess it was one of the prototypes on display, and it's great looking.
Yeah, cool. And I've been seeing a ton of people starting to get their figures in and seeing them, and it's just like any pre-order that's out there. You get some, you lose some, you have to let some go by, and like anything with Mondo, especially, right?
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's on there for a whole 5 seconds before it's sold out. But yeah, he was able to nab one of those. But the nice thing is, Jairus, you can pick him up. So go to seismic.com, and let's get back to the design. So
seismictoys.com, and you'll be able to get both this, and we have, like I said, a few of these left, and even lesser of the clear translucent version behind me, which is only limited to 20 that were made. So these, we only have about 3 left.
Oh, wow, that is cool too. Yeah. So seismictoys.com to make sure that everyone gets that correct. And you have Ganira Megadon and a lot of other cool figures out there. Are you sold out of any of the other Dawn of the Monsters line or?
Some of them, yes. The original Megadon that you see here is long sold out. Our red version, which is also behind me, has been sold out. But we do have some of the Arctics still in stock. The classic Ganiras, which is the original version, which had a similar thing with it being very translucent, is still in stock. And the clear Ganira that's behind me is something that we also had that actually arrived when Jairus arrived, which is also limited to 25 editions. That is also still in stock. We have about 10 of those left.
Okay, excellent. You also sell, just as a side note, you sell Ragnar, correct? I haven't talked to those guys yet, but
Yes, it's a great figure. So I have to say that when you're in the designer toy community and you meet a lot of cool people, not only are the artists, but the sculptors are really cool. And these guys just have just some tremendous workflow. I mean, Ragnar is a gorgeous piece. I have two of these guys. It's just a gorgeous figure. And shout out to Last Bastion Studios. Wes and Chris that run it are just really tremendous guys and just really have such a good creative vibe. So, I mean, that's always one of the really cool things about meeting different people, and you're able to kind of do things. And this was actually an exclusive that they did a paint job of 7 of these that were available at our designer con table this past year.
wow.
So, I mean, I would definitely encourage anybody to check their stuff out because it's always nice meeting the creative people that are just doing really exciting things and original things. It kind of, again, we all love our regular Godzilla and kaiju stuff that's out there, but sometimes it's nice to see something that's totally unique and eye-catching.
That's right. And seeing the Dawn of the Monsters line, of course. But yeah, getting back to Last Bastion, I've got a message out to them, so I'm definitely going to be doing a live stream with them soon.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great.
Getting more information on Ragnar, but yeah, you can definitely catch them at Seismic Toys to purchase one of those. But getting back to Jairus here, yeah. So doing a 3D of him, like seeing him on the screen and all. How was your reaction when you first saw him, in just person? I mean, compared to what you were seeing on a screen, anyways.
Yeah, it's funny because it goes through many processes. So you go through obviously the final sketch,
Mhm.
and you kind of get a certain attachment to the final sketch. But then he goes into 3D, and you're seeing basically like a gray model, which is what Mike Lambert is sculpting. And you take the model, and then from there you change things around, or there are certain things that the owner of the IP will say, we'll change this around, shrink the dorsal plates, thin out the thighs, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll kind of abide by those stipulations. But then when you're seeing the gray model, then you're coloring it, and you get attached to the colorized image.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the unpainted prototype, and then you get the painted prototype, and then again from there you go into the final version. So again, it's always a little bit of adjustments through every process of creation. When we got the prototype, there were certain things. There was probably a lot more yellow on it originally, and we had certain areas we wanted to tone it down and change this and add a little bit more texture and color there. So again, it was when we got this in person, it's probably about end of June. I'd gotten the prototype from our factory, and again, it's always, because it's such a roller coaster ride when you're creating it. So when you finally get it, it's semi a surreal moment that you're like, oh, it's done, it's finished. Here it is.
Being able to hold it and touch it and all. And
Sure.
I was going to say, like things like the length of the tail, for instance, is that one of the things that maybe they asked you, or was that more of a how it fits in the box kind of decision, how long the tail would go out?
Yeah, I think the tail was actually something that we always kind of had a certain length. We never wanted to have something too crazy. But I think some other aspects change. Obviously, the bulk of him, the size of the frill, the size of the dorsal plates. Some of the features on the face. So those are some things that kind of changed along the way.
And I like getting Sofubi figures about this size too, this scale. You don't have to
Oh yeah.
attach the tail. It's not separate or anything like that. Some of these Godzilla tails that are out there could be crazy.
Yeah, they're quite a lot more extensive. But I mean, I tend to like the 9-inch scale figures because to me, a lot of my Sofubi is that size, and I just think it's a really good size, not only to have for sale for customers, but as a collector for me. I mean, I prefer that size.
Yeah. And I was going to say, remind the viewers, the suit, I guess, that they used for Jairus from the Godzilla series would have been the what was the 67 or so suit, or
64 suit is what they used, actually.
64 suit. And so, taking some liberties with the face and all of that, when it came down to like the design of that face, I love this face. I just think it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we wanted to have something a little bit not so kind of cutesy as far as what we saw. We wanted to do something that was a little more, had a little more menace to him in the brow, especially where the eyes look. We wanted it to kind of almost appear like the eyes were looking at you from different angles, and it had a
Yes.
little more of a little more a starker facial feature.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I definitely see that in the eyebrows, especially that suit that they did end up using for the actual Ultraman. I don't remember this brow line being anything, like that. So I love seeing that menacing face, like you're seeing here. A little bit of the yellow here on top of the head there, making that stand out because it was an add-on, I'm sure, in the Ultraman show.
Sure.
Things that are added on to this figure, and yeah, there's so much cool, things going on. And of course, I always think of that signature Godzilla dorsal fin that
Yeah.
is right there. Maybe he doesn't have as many of them, but that one right there just really works. And yeah, so we've got articulation in the arms. We've got, just an arm movement up and down. Only so far with when you have a fin, of course. And
It can only go so high, but yeah.
yeah, he's not going to raise his arms above his head. And so, yeah, very cool. And I guess, yeah, that was maybe a limitation of the fin. You weren't able to get a head movement in there. Not that that's a big deal, because I think he's always going to be looking forward when you think of that. When you think of a Godzilla like that, and he's always going to be facing forward. So, love this figure. Very cool.
No, I'm glad you like it. And again, it's been like all things when you're making something, you like it, but then you always hope that other people are going to like it. And I have to say, it's been very heartwarming for both Alex and myself to see the reactions and that people are enjoying it. And that's sort of one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. So if
Yeah.
we're enjoying it, that's half the battle. And we're just glad that it's getting into the hands of collectors and people have something that's a unique piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going back to Dawn of the Monsters and seeing the fact that the IP of Ganira Megadon being able to play a game here soon, as soon as we get that released, we've got a figure that's not got a cinematic release but a video game release. That's kind of a unique expedition, I should say, for you and partnering with 13 a.m. Games. Kind of explain how maybe that differs from what maybe you would normally do when you're talking about like a film kaiju to make a figure for.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about it is the fact that Seismic kind of started in, I would say, very late 2017, shortly after G Fest, and it was we had we were there in 2018, and obviously 2019 is when we finally had the figure, and then it was basically a few months afterwards, and when we kind of first was like, all right, we're going to do a soft form of the company before it was official, and Alex was like, hey, we had planned another figure that was totally different. We had always said we wanted to make a toy. It was sort of a bucket list thing for him, myself, and we were like, let's just do something. Maybe we'll do a cryptid or something that's like different, but we can just kind of get our feet wet and kind of go from there. And he's like, hey, one time he's on the phone, and he's like, hey, I'm working on something. I want to show it to you. Might have an idea for the figure, and it was Megadon, actually. And that's when he first told me about Dawn of the Monsters and what they had planned. And it's been a fun process because, again, I'm not in the video game business, but he is by day job. And I was kind of living almost vicariously through them, just seeing how it went from the beginning phases now to its final phase. And it was really exciting to me because I don't know. I've never seen the background of working in a video game. So kind of seeing that, again, having to design characters that were, kind of in their own stages of development for the game was kind of cool. And what we have, it was fun. And I will say I have played a little bit of the game last month, and it's super awesome. It's really exciting. So I myself have to get an upgraded system now to play it and to buy it. So it's going to be very exciting, you know?
Yeah, to me, looking at it, and my kid, of course, going crazy because he's into the Nintendo Switch games, and he's just chomping at the bit to get that released when it's ready to go. But that replayability, I imagine they've got a lot of that going for this game, and
Oh, it's
so
so much fun. And I think that's the thing. I mean, I think if you're not only a kaiju fan, but I think if you just like really cool video games that have really good action, you're gonna like this game. I mean, it's got a lot of charm. It works great. It's really real responsive when you're controlling the monsters and stuff, and it just looks really cool too. I mean, that very like Mike Mignola style and the way they've kind of designed it to have that specific look. It's really really wild. I mean, I loved it.
yes, I want to bring in actually some pictures. I forgot to do that with Jairus here. I'm going to kind of step back a minute and go back to him and share my screen if I can do this properly. I want to bring in a really cool shot of Jairus that you've got here. Um, yeah, everything's in backwards order here. So let me bring him in. There we go. Okay. Yeah, beautiful shot there of seeing him. And, you've got such a cool texture in the face. Your audio still good, Chris? I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm good.
okay, just making sure. Yeah, this texture and all of that, seeing how that all kind of came about.
That's huge kudos to Mike Lambert. I mean, really, he did a terrific job with the detail. He has a really wonderful eye for it.
With Sophobie, do you find, I don't know, in the design, with edges, rounding them off, is that kind of what you aim for? It just seems like there's the rounding off of his face here, and that just seems to lend itself well in soft vinyl.
I think so. It was a conscious decision on our part. You have certain things. We want certain things to be more spiky than
Hmm.
things to be a little bit more softer. And that was one of the things we wanted to do. Again with Jairus, what's really interesting is again, you may have colored something different, but when you see the prototype, you say, okay, does that work? Does it not work? Or hey, that looks really cool. Let's change this and make this. So that's all kind of that process that you go along with.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking of even biology, like you mentioned, how it's growing, the frill is growing out of him. I can really, kind of see what
Yes.
direction was in the shoulders here, how it's just kind of coming out that way, and it makes it part of him instead of tacked on, literally like the suit was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little different, but again, just happy that it's been a success.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's another picture that you have of Jairus that you specifically want me to bring up, I'm glad to bring them up. I've got so many.
Profile picture maybe might be good. I think I sent you a few.
Yeah, I've got so many. I'm going to bring up this translucent one that you were mentioning. I think you got it. Yeah, you got it on the shelf behind you there. Um, the Yeah, that translucent one. Let me see if I can't get the best one for this. That one is so cool.
Yeah, that was actually fun fact. That was actually one of our first images of the translucent version from the factory. So we saw it, and again, the figures are made that way, and then they're painted from there. But we like the idea of offering blanks because many people, again, you might just like having a blank on the shelf, which is really cool. But there's a lot of people out there in the toy and designer toy community that maybe want a custom paint job on, and that's really cool. And we love seeing people that have done that with other figures. We've had some Ganiras that have had some custom paint jobs as well.
Mhm.
So for us, it's one of those things. We do a limited run of these things, and we've done the same thing with our red Megadon and the green Ganira because we wanted to have it where it was like if people wanted to have it. And again, it looks great on a shelf. It's a really cool, striking color. But for those that are more paint savvy, hey, create something wild.
That's right. Yeah. And are these still available? These ones for you to purchase?
Yeah, the clear Giras is. Yep, we have about 3 left.
Okay,
This
yeah.
one.
Now I want to. You mentioned Ganira. I want to bring up some really cool shots of Ganira here that you've got. There he is. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that
And
was an interesting one because it was such a wide figure. And again, you compare the models online, but there's nothing when you're actually physically seeing it in person compared to what you've had previously with you've had like Megadon. You're like, wow, this is a really girthy, big kaiju. It's really wide. So it was really different. And again, what's really awesome is, again, you see the design, there's not a tail, but you're like, oh, well, how's that going to stand up? But again, thanks to Mike Lambert's design choices and how he's able to balance the figure and our factory, it stands phenomenal on a shelf. I mean, it doesn't fall, it doesn't wobble, it doesn't like slope down. It's just really, really a sturdy figure.
yeah, that's the thing.
It's top heavy.
Yeah, I critique the He-Man figures too, and every time that we have a new unboxing of a figure or whatever, we're always critiquing how he stands, and it's just like you don't have that tail like you said.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that was my thing when I first saw the done. I said, well, how's this going to work? And again, thanks to their skills, it works.
Yeah,
It's
balancing act here. Another shot I want to bring up is the I don't know if you want to call it the big four.
Yeah,
We've got
shot.
yeah, such a cool seeing all of these guys together here. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was taken when we got the prototype. We had a very limited time with the prototype because it was scheduled to be given out as part of a special thing with Ultraman Connection, which I'll get to that in a second. So, I had maybe a week with it. So I was just trying to photograph it every day in different forms of lighting and different environments just to kind of get the most out of it. So for me, it was great to see, okay, here are all the, for lack of a better term, these are the original painted molds in a sense, because, we have blank versions, which are limited, but, these are more like the figures that had the, higher production runs, so to speak. So to kind of see them all together, it's kind of interesting to see how the line as a total and as a toy line goes, how it all fits together. So it was really kind of cool.
yeah, and I'm already throwing out a curveball here for you. I want to see Jairus fight in Dawn of the Monsters. I don't know if you have talks with Alex and maybe they do too. I'm just throwing it out there. You don't even have to respond if you don't want to, but I'm just saying, seeing him like this, paired with the,
very interesting battle.
it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, just throwing that one out there, but that would be so cool to see, and somehow bridging that connection that you have there. Some of the shout outs you wanted to mention there.
Yeah, I mean that really what's been a really great support system for us throughout this whole process. Obviously, we'd gotten the license through a connection that Alex had with Subaraya, and our people that we deal with to license through with Subaraya have been enormously positive, and we couldn't have been any luckier to deal with them. They're wonderful people. They're just great to work with, and great communicators. And in turn, by working with them, we're also collaborating and talking with Starlight Runner. And again, I have to say, give a shout out to Jeff Gomez and the whole Starlight Runner team, because they are doing a phenomenal job at really bringing brand awareness of Ultraman here in the Western Hemisphere, and then again worldwide too, through Ultraman Connection. There's so much in the pipeline. I mean, I can just say that I think we're in for, especially if you're a kaiju fan and you're an Ultraman fan, this is such a tip of the iceberg. There's so much cool stuff coming out for Ultraman in the next few years, and it's really an exciting time to be an Ultra fan. So, I mean, they're just doing a terrific job, and it's been a lot of fun collabing with them on stuff, and again, showing them the things that we're working on, and they've been just super supportive and just been really grateful.
And as a kaiju fan, when I talk to a lot of other kaiju fans, it's kind of like Ultraman becomes one of those things you can either take or leave.
Which is because again, I mean, everybody's different and everybody's entitled to their own taste, but like, sometimes I meet people, but it's like that maybe have not been exposed, or maybe it's just they don't like it. But it's like, well, I mean, Ultraman is just it's so great. There's just so much to choose from. And again, it's a deep dive. I mean,
Yeah.
look, if you start that, it's there's so many series and so many shows, but it's so great. And I found myself getting really big into Ultraman many years ago. I mean, I didn't watch it as a kid. It really wasn't around. Beyond, I saw a little bit of Ultraman Power, and I was familiar with Superhuman Samurai, which was the U.S. version of Gridman. But I didn't, the only other thing I'd seen when I was like 13, I was at that convention and I saw that episode with Jairus with Ultraman, and I knew of Ultraman, but I never really was exposed until Ultraman Tiga came out on the Fox box many years ago, and that's kind of what sold me on Ultraman. And since then, and during that absence of from Final Wars to all the other new stuff, I kind of went to a little bit of the Ultraman stuff a little bit, and it's been great. And again, thankfully, also to some of the great work that Mill Creek's doing with some of these releases that we're getting of the Blu-rays and the DVDs of the shows. So many of these shows have not been seen by most of us here, and it's great to get them subtitled and to have them out there. And again, there's such a plethora of it over the last few years. I mean, last year with the pandemic, I did a lot of Ultraman watching, which was great because I had seen so many things for the first time. So that was very exciting. And I think we're in for some really great stuff where Ultraman is concerned in the next few.
I got to definitely back you up on that with Ultraman with those Mill Creek releases. The Blu-ray quality is beautiful, and seeing that we probably had DVD releases before of the first season of Ultraman, and it looked okay. It was acceptable for television quality kind of production, and then I see it in Blu-ray, and I'm just like blown away by how good it actually really does look, and seeing that it wasn't like, in some cases, you're also kind of a Star Trek fan, how good those like Next Generation Blu-rays looked compared to what we remember on television, and even the DVD releases, the VOD versions that are out there, they look so good. And then when they talk about remastering the other ones that might have been shot on video rather than film, kind of an uphill battle to see what kind of quality they can get out of those. But seeing Ultraman way back in the 1960s as it should be seen, with that beautiful Blu-ray quality.
Yeah.
So I picked up that first season, and Ultra Q was there.
It's so great. It's beautiful black and white. It's really cool. It's got a great vibe. And also, even Neo Ultra Q is a lot of fun too, if you haven't checked that out. It's one of the more newer versions of Ultra Q that they did.
Okay, what is it called again? Sorry.
Neo Ultra Q, which is also Mill Creek put that out on Blu-ray as well, which is a short series, but it's really great.
Yeah, what circa years did that come out?
I want to say that's 2011. Don't quote me. It's around that time,
Relatively recent. Okay, very cool. Everett's chiming in. I got to bring him up here. I'm gonna pick up one of those blue and yellow Jairuses soon. I have to clear it with the wife first, so maybe pencil him in for his kaiju spending allowance. Yeah. You can definitely go broke right on all of these figures that are coming out, but
Oh yeah, and I mean, I think again, I not only because we make them, but like me and Alex are collectors too, and again, so there's between all the stuff with Godzilla and now Ultraman, like there's just such a licensing craze, and there's so much of it out there, which is great because again, we remember when we were kids, we didn't have a lot of stuff. We had the Treadmaster toys, we had the Imperial figures, but we didn't really have access to a lot of this stuff. So it's pretty wild to see that now, for newer generations, it's so much more accessible. Not only the movies more accessible, but the products.
Yes, absolutely.
There's so much coming out. There's so much in development. It's just, and again, you have to hone in on what you like. And my rule of thumb as a collector is always get what speaks to you. Mm-hmm. Get what, you see, and it just sort of speaks to your soul, and say, this is something that I would like to have, and again, that's, I think, the beautiful thing about Sofubi is that you don't have to get every one of them. And that's with any figure. You get what you think is maybe the best sculpt, or what's the most eye-catching. It's just what's something that's something that's unique to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I'd say, definitely take the plunge on these figures, especially because they're very affordable. Honestly, this is a very affordable, and Megadon and all of those Sofubis, they work well on the shelf, and obviously, like anything else, you can burn a hole in your wallet. But it's cool to see, just all of these coming out. That's not just Godzilla on the shelf, like you said. It's just, there's there could be an oversaturation, which brings to mind actually the fact that I was kind of asking myself this. Um, uh, it might be kind of cliche. Does the world need Ultraman, or does the world need, whatever? Does America, need Ultraman? More content from Subaraya, and seeing Ultraman coming over, whether it's produced as an American production or we're getting the Japanese productions of Ultraman on the big screen and on television, what have you. I say yes. I say yes. We do need it. I think.
So 100%, Nick, and you bring up a really good point. I think we need it because Ultraman as a show and as a character, it's main origins and its consistent message is about so many positive things. It's about friendship and heroism and helping out your neighbor. It does so much good, and there's so much good to it. And again, many times, you watch this episode and you're like, wow, some of them can be. And again, yes, they're fun and they can be goofy, but there's some stuff that's very deep on a human emotional level. And I think that's what makes it so strong. And yes, I think the fact that we're getting more of Ultraman now and now into the future, I think it's a great thing. And I mean, again, it's thanks to obviously which is a very long deep dive, and that's probably for someone else more to explain. But I think for many years we weren't getting a lot of this stuff because there was a whole dispute between Subaraya Productions and a company called Chayo, and we for decades didn't get to see this stuff because there was a dispute between these two companies. But
Right.
since it finally got overturned in the last, I guess, what, 4 or 5 years, thankfully it's been able to let us have these new channels and to get these things out there. And again, it's because of the work of Starlight Runner that we're really seeing some really great things. And again, many other people, Mill Creek, et cetera. I mean, it's been really, really terrific.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And seeing, I think about what's out there in the IP world of what's popular, and we've seen for years the superhero craze, and I'm kind of maybe just in my small little world that I live in, seeing the downward trend of oversaturation and the audiences maybe turning some of that off. We've had our big Marvel moments. We've had our big DC moments. Not saying that the fans aren't still watching that content, but maybe they're thirsty for something different. And I think Ultraman hits a lot of these marks where, you as a kaiju fan, as a superhero fan, he is a superhero.
And he's now part of technically he's part of the Marvel universe because of Rise of Ultraman and the various Ultraman comics. This is it's a cool thing that Ultraman is has a Marvel comic. Who'd have thought,
Right. Yeah, and even as Power Ranger fans when we were kids, and later learning, Super Sentai and Voltron also comes to mind. Some of these other IP, the mecha genre, it just hits all the marks. And so seeing more Ultraman content, I do think that there's definitely a market for it. When you talk to people about the Godzilla side of things, they know Godzilla, but they might not know Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidra and all of that. But when you talk to people about general audiences about Ultraman, do you get much feedback? Do you get the eyes glaze over? Do you get who's that? Kind of tell me what you kind of get.
You get a lot of half and half. I do various shows. I mean, obviously now that conventions are starting to come back, and there's some people that just say, hey, I don't know what this is, but this is just really cool. I'm going to pick it up. And there's people that can spout out all the monsters' names. And I think especially here in North America, people are probably a lot more familiar with the original monsters and the kaiju from the 1966 original Ultraman series. But again, thankfully, because we're getting so much more of these shows out there, people are becoming familiar with some of the other characters. and especially with some of the new gen stuff, which is great because, for instance, Ultraman Z last year, or Ultraman Z, that was simulcast, when it aired in Japan to when we got it. So it was like every Friday night, you knew at like 8 o'clock, you can watch Ultraman Z. And it was the brand new show live. And again, people were watching these things. And again, fans got a chance to see this show pretty much when it was there in Japan, and to see it there was just really exciting. I know for me, it was a highlight. I mean, me and a bunch of my very close G family and friends, and we got together every Friday night. And it was just a great thing, especially during the pandemic, which was a very difficult time for many of us. We all couldn't see each other, you couldn't travel, etc. And work was crazy for many of us. So it was kind of a nice thing to kind of have, and it kind of put your mind at ease from the problems of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when and there's so much of it. There's we have more content coming out in the MonsterVerse that was announced recently. Apple TV. Okay, I guess I might have to start subscribing to Apple TV if I'm going to get that content now. It's like, how many streaming services can I get? But to maybe throw something out there for somebody who wants to maybe dip their toe in the water of the Ultraman. The Netflix has that anime series.
Yep. And season 2 is on the way. I know that, and that I think that's really great. I would definitely recommend anybody just to pick up a Blu-ray. I mean, go on Tubi, go on YouTube, watch Ultraman Z. I mean, Ultraman Trigger just finished up. So I mean, just check these things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check them out. Dig in. Going back to my background with Ultraman goes back to the Australian Towards the Future, which was on broadcast TV. Don't even know what channel it was on when I was a kid. I just knew it was on every once in a while, and
I caught it randomly one early morning. Back in the day, we all grew up and we woke up early to watch the cartoons on TV, and I just caught it before I was watching something else, and I always remembered it. And I remember seeing Ultraman fight. And when Superhuman Samurai came out, I was like, well, isn't that other show that I watched? You start thinking about it, but then you realize, obviously all these heroes have some kind of a lineage in a sense.
Well, and I always had the notion that somehow that Jet Jaguar in Megalon was Ultraman.
Oh yeah,
I just had it in my head.
Me and John Bellotti laugh a lot because sometimes we're at shows, and you get a lot of people that will point to his artwork and they'll say, "Oh man, that's Ultraman," and it's like, well, no, it's not the Jaguar, but you try to explain the differences as best you can.
Well, yeah, and I guess in my head I was trying to make all these IPs as a kid. I was trying to make them all somehow be part of a large general universe that was all related. So yeah, that's okay. I mean, it was in my head as a kid, but they only had 8 or 10 episodes of that series.
Short series, yeah, it was very short.
Very limited. They had a toy line at KB Toys with.
I remember that. And again, I just remembered seeing it, and then I would see it in the toy store. I was, at that point I was into, Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters and Transformers. So
yeah. It was maybe not high on the list.
That was my pre kaiju experience,
Right. Yeah. It was kind of like out there. It was not maybe high up on the list. I remember they also had the Super Nintendo fighter.
You did.
Game. Yeah. Which was cool to see, and it's not a bad game actually. It's just
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, Everett's back in here, so spit out a recommendation idea. I wish a figure from you guys. So, favorite Ultraman kaiju is Golzo.
Ultraman Tiga.
Okay, and I'm not as versed into the later Ultraman series, so that's one I'm going to have to check out. Is Tiga? I'm still going through a lot of different of the Ultraman IP.
I just watched Tiga because I just recently got the Tiga Dyna Gaia Blu-rays, not Blu-rays, the DVD sets, and I've never seen Dyna or Gaia, so it's I wanted to rewatch Tiga, and I always wanted to watch them on order, so it's a great series, and I'm getting through right now, which is really a lot of fun.
So Golzo is from Tiga, and the color scheme love to see would be the neon green, purple, black vinyl mixture, translucent or not. I'll call it the Godzilla fan freaks. Yeah.
I like your color choices there, Everett. I think that's very exciting choices there.
What does Golzo look like?
So Golzo is more of a He's more of a two-legged kaiju. He has a really big like dome around his head. He's actually quite popular, and he's popped up a lot in some of the newer gen stuff where they've done these kind of hybrid kaiju. But I don't have a figure of it here. Otherwise, I'd bring it up. But he's actually a really popular one. He was actually the one of the first kaiju that in the very first episode of Ultraman Tiga, he fights Melba and Golzo, but Golzo has reappeared several times. Yep, that's him right there.
Bringing him up to kind of show,
great looking design. Definitely a really popular character.
Cool.
From the '90s era into now.
Okay, looks like there's a lot of different variants of him too. So hey, there's a chance maybe we'll see it. Who knows?
We can only hope.
Yeah, we don't know what the future holds, but that'd be cool to see seeing more of these. There are so many, and I remember watching.
It's a lot.
Yeah, like when I watched with that first season, my kids love watching it over and over and over again, and I have to open up the booklet because not all the times are they named. The monster.
Sometimes in the episodes when you watch, it'll say like featuring kaiju or monster so and so. But the booklets are really great that they put together in Mill Creek, and I know Keith Aiken and Bob Johnson were involved in those, which is a really great thing because I think for us to have you don't remember all the monsters' names, so like to see like the booklet where they have not only did these two write the episode synopsises and they have a little picture of all the kaiju, so it's really pretty awesome.
Well, that's why when I was talking to you about about like Megadon and Ganira and all that, and it was already established through Dawn of the Monsters, they came up with their kaiju names. I wouldn't even know where to begin creating my own kaiju name because there's so many great ones. And then I'd go to the Ultraman universe and be like, someone's probably picked it in one of the many kaiju he's fought over the years. Has he ever fought one more than once in separate series? Just throwing that out there. Maybe someone in the chat.
As far as just like been repeat monsters in several series.
Yeah, like maybe one he fought in the first series, first season that came up in a different design. But
a lot of times they've recycled suits a lot. They'll change things around. They'll spray paint it. They'll add certain aspects to it. But like you'll know it's that's that kaiju. Okay, so you see where they might have done. And again, a lot of that was based on budgetary reasons.
Right. Yeah. When I remember again towards the future, those names, the Garukadon, and trying to think some of the other ones that he fought in there. The ones that one was a bug. I actually bought the bug because it was a cool Najaba.
Yeah.
I think his name was, and apparently Gamora has appeared in many series.
Yes. One of my favorite Ultraman kaiju of all time.
Gamora, okay. Yeah, and it goes back to that first series, right? Because I definitely remember a Gamora.
He's appeared many times. I mean, I really love Gamora and the Ultra Galaxy shows where he's more of a good guy, and it's just he's really always just been he actually has appeared several times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I want to make sure everyone gets the chance to maybe if they want to go to a show and meet you. Obviously, if they can go to seismictoys.com, they can find you on Facebook, Twitter. Where else?
Yep, we're all three of those platforms, just at Seismic Toys, and you'll be able to find us. Follow us and subscribe. And we've been doing quite a bit of shows lately. I mean, obviously, things are a little slower with conventions, and that's okay. Abiding by what's going on in the world. Usually once a month, we're at the Woodbridge Toy Show, which is right over here, which I'm usually selling with Tom Rooney, which is Retro Rooney, and Mike Drakowski from Vampire Robots. We're always set up there. And coming up, we have ZoloCon, which is in March, which is a really big show in Pennsylvania. We have a really cool designer toy show in Brooklyn that's coming up in June, which is going to be a lot of exciting. So, we always try to do that. I mean, we did Decon, but 5 Points is what's the show in Brooklyn. So that's going to be a really cool one, our first weekend of June. And we'll also be at G-Fest so far. So again, we never know what pops up and where we might be going, but usually every month we're at the Woodbridge shows and we'll always post on our social where we're going to be.
Yeah. So at least upcoming, a lot of New York and then G Fest in the summer in Chicago.
Mhm.
Okay, and then beyond that, anything else on the schedule or
Not right now, but again, you never know. Sometimes, a show pops up where you're like, "Oh, let's check that out. Let's do that." And again, it's all schedule related, and
right?
how
Yeah.
the show is promoted and et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like anything else, yeah, it's a weird time for shows, and seeing at least G Fest coming back, that's great, and then there's some other cons that are starting to pop out of the woodwork, so that's great to see. Being able to see people in person again. Hopefully we can get past all of this stuff. So yeah,
Hopefully,
absolutely.
we'll get to see each other in person too. It's been quite a long time, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and and so all those sources, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, seismictoys.com. Anything else that you're kind of planning on that you can talk to us about? And I know some of the things that might be maybe on the back burner and in the works that you can't talk about right now, but anything that maybe we can start thinking about and looking forward to from Seismic.
Well, again, can't say a whole heck of a lot, but I will say that hopefully this year we will have many releases, and by many releases, I mean if all goes well, we will have many new molds and characters that we'll be working on. So I can't say what it is. I will say we are waiting on our next prototype. So, and we have other things that are in different stages of development and design. So, some are in 3D, some are in 2D sketches. So it's pretty exciting, and I wish I could say more, but I can't. But obviously, when we are able to unveil some stuff, for sure, you'll be one of the first to know.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on for a future episode talking about some of the new releases. Could you give us even a number of possible releases? Five, a dozen? I don't know.
It's always one of those. I never like to count my chickens before they hatch, in a sense.
Okay.
'Cause again, unfortunately, the way sometimes the world is right now, supply chain issues, and things are taking a lot longer to make and to get to you than it is. So I'm just hoping for multiple releases. And obviously, 2021 we had Jairus that came out, and Ganira had come out earlier in that year, but we're hoping that we will increase that number for 2022. We have, like I said, a lot planned. A lot of the designs are very exciting, and the characters are very exciting. And I don't want to say what it is or where it's from. The only thing I will hint at is that the next figure will have something that none of our other previous figures had as a different gimmick, so to speak. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. And maybe to continue and further bait you for information, anything more with Dawn of the Monsters, or even with their possible release date that we can look forward to.
Yeah, that will be out here, in the next few months, and I know that it's going to be really, really loved by monster fans in general. And again, like I said, I have to get a new system to just play it on, because I'm not much of a video gamer by definition, in a sense, but I'll definitely be getting it to get that game and to play it. Like I said, I had a blast playing it. That last was in December. I played it. I played a chunk of it. So
Was it on a particular console or
I
PC?
played it on Switch, actually. So I tried it out, and it was great. And again, I mean, what Alex and the 13 a.m. crew have done is just a amazingly fun interactive game. And Steve Roberts, who, I mean, the monster roars are incredible and just really cool sounding, and just really great stuff. Cool Easter eggs. It's really just a lot of fun stuff that's all in the game. And again, Mike Lambert worked on it, and just I think it's just going to be a really exciting thing to have.
Yeah, well, with Seismic and 13 a.m. games and the people that you're able to work with instead of against, I think that's really great to see that cohesion of creative minds coming together, creating this cool product to get that out there and give us something a little different. I think that's your collaboration with these guys has been awesome, and we're looking forward to seeing what's coming up next, because it's a great time to be a kaiju fan.
Oh, absolutely. And again, just sort of to wrap things up, I speaking to that, I think anytime you can have a collaboration and it's a good one, it's a good thing. And from the people that we worked with Jairus, just to kind of get it there, again, Chris Marty, who did our graphic design elements on our header card, and Bill Couture, who did the artwork, just really, really stellar stuff. And it's just again, some of the artists that we've worked with, John Bellotti at Robo 7, we have some other artists that are going to be on the next few releases, so it's just going to be really, really fun, and I will leave it at that.
All right, and I think definitely people need to reach out to Chris at Seismic and check out all that he's got going, and definitely pick up Jairus before he sells out, because and some of these other great figures.
Yeah, I mean, he was all done as a pre-order, but again, there was a few of them that are left. So both between Jairus, our Arctic Megadon, and our both versions of Ganiras, they are still available. So, but they are all limited. So all of the things that we do, all the figures that we make, all have limited runs. So we try to do that because, again, it's someone in the art design toy community, and we just like to do that because, again, you might have a color scheme, and then when that's done, it's retired, and then you do something else and you try something else. So kind of like what we did with the Megadons and the Ganiras. So
yeah,
this one has a little bit more of a larger production run than our usual ones, but again, it is on its last batch, so to speak. So
and it was definitely worth the wait. I know with supply chains threw a real wrench.
Yeah, it was probably about 2 months, give or take, later than it probably should have been. But again, unfortunately, it's world events, and there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, well, good things came to those who waited, and it was definitely worth the wait. It was one that I was chomping at the bit. I'm sure you were getting messages beyond just me. When am I going to get Jairus? When am I going to get him?
Yeah, I think with anything, you have to be transparent, because I think that's the biggest thing. We're a small company, me and Alex. So, we just wanted to just let people know, and we would post on our social media, just like, hey, this is what's going on. This is where we have the update, and you try to give customers and just the general public just that transparency. Listen, like, when we know, we're going to let you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you, Chris, for your time. This has been great talking to you. Yeah. It's not all the time that I review a figure that I actually get to talk to anyone that had a hand in bringing him over to the States, part of the design, and being able to get him into my hands. It's not all the time that we get the chance to talk to those that bring it over here. So this is very cool to have you on here, not just talking about Jairus, but all of the products that Seismic has brought us, and also the Dawn of the Monster stuff too. It's just like I said, great time to be a kaiju fan. So looking forward to seeing you again here soon. And definitely here on the Monster Report. So thank you so much, Chris, for all your time. We're going to have you back hopefully here.
Thanks for having me, man. I always appreciate it, Nick. And, it's always a pleasure talking to you about the stuff that we love. We love monsters. So, it's always great. Yeah. And again, thanks to everybody that have been supportive of the release, and to the team that I work with.
Yes, you got a great team. Yeah. So excellent. So we'll have you back for that when we get that chance. And for us here at the Monster Report, thank you for tuning in and joining in on the chat, and checking it out as we're posting this to YouTube and all of that too. So, and supporting the channel, support Seismic, 13 a.m. games too, and anything kaiju related. It's just a great time. So thank you so much for your time, and we will catch you next time on the Monster Report. Thanks.